This is the kitchen of a prison. All the food here is prepared for the inmates. 30 Michelin-starred chefs cook for the prisoners every day, and there are dedicated personnel to supervise the quality of the dishes. As the final dish is placed on the table, the platform slowly begins to descend. It will gradually descend from the first level to the 333rd level, and the prisoners can only enter the dining area when the platform reaches their respective level. Goring looks at the slowly descending platform with some anticipation. He has never seen a prison like this, where inmates can order food freely. There is still some time before the platform reaches their level, so he decides to get to know his new roommate and inquire about the situation in the prison. However, Trimagasi seems to have a standoffish attitude, telling him to stay away. Goring returns to his spot and once again asks Trimagasi about the strange nature of this prison. Trimagasi appears to be interested in this topic and tells Goring that there are a total of 333 levels in the prison, but the food on the platform is only enough for those in the first 100 levels. They are fortunate to be assigned to the 48th level. Goring was curious about how people survive below the 100th floor, but Trimagasi did not answer that question. Trimagasi stands up, throws his pillow on the ground, and then kneels down. Goring is puzzled, not knowing what Trimagasi intends to do, but soon, he understands. As the platform descends, the gourmet food prepared by the Michelin-starred chefs comes into view. However, it is nothing like what Goring imagined. He can hardly fathom what these dishes have gone through. Trimagasi, being experienced, doesn't mind these leftover meals and starts devouring them hungrily. Watching these scraps and leftovers, Goring loses his appetite entirely. Soon, the platform moves to the next level. Trimagasi hastily picks up a bottle of alcohol, takes a big gulp, and then throws the bottle down. He rinses his mouth with the remaining alcohol in his mouth. This bizarre action leaves Goring bewildered. At this point, Goring regrets coming here, but it is too late. Days pass, and Goring is starving. He picks a few pieces of food that appear clean and puts them into his mouth. After finishing his meal, Goring looks at the book he brought with him. Just then, someone falls from above, startling Goring, but Trimagasi seems unfazed by it all. He tells Goring that there are no forms of entertainment in this place. Every day, they are confined to their own floor of a few dozen square meters. Many people can't bear this life and end up taking their own lives. The next day, as the platform descends, a woman appears from above. Trimagasi tells Goring not to bother with her, saying that she comes down every month claiming to be looking for her daughter. Goring notices the woman has injuries and wants to help, but she ignores him. As the platform slowly descends, there are two burly men living on the lower level who haven't had meat for a long time. They decide to do something. Goring wants to help, but the platform is 6 meters high, and all he can do is shout for assistance. Soon, calm is restored below, and the woman returns to the platform. Observing everything in front of him, Goring's perspective begins to change. Since he can't change the situation, he decides to indulge himself. Goring gradually adapts to this prison, where there are no rules, yet they are bound by rules. He quickly assimilates into being one of the parasites feeding on the food. He no longer holds back his greed and even eats until he vomits when he encounters food he likes. Goring peacefully spends a month in this manner. One evening, as the platform rushes through the floors, a strong, unpleasant smell fills the air, causing them to lose consciousness. When Goring wakes up the next day, he finds himself tightly bound to a bed. Trimagasi approaches calmly and consoles him. It is then that Goring notices that they are on the 171st level, meaning they won't even have scraps to eat. Shortly after, the platform descends to this level, and although there are pots and pans, there is not a single thing to eat. Trimagasi doesn't want to kill Goring, but in order to survive, he plans to slowly consume Goring's flesh without endangering his life. But before that, Trimagasi will starve him for a few days, following the method of preparing French snails, allowing the snails to rest for a few days to purge their impurities before they become the most delicious ingredients. After a few days, Trimagasi can no longer bear it. Trimagasi squats slowly in front of the bed and viciously cuts into Goring's thigh with a katana. At that moment, the platform descends, and the woman who was looking for her daughter is there. Trimagasi is still earnestly cutting the meat when the woman approaches and knocks him down with a bottle. With Trimagasi dealt with, the woman looks at Goring, remembering his previous help. She cuts the cloth binding Goring and hands him the knife. Goring took the knife and crawled over to Trimagasi's side. After all his suffering, he could finally be released. When Goring wakes up again, his thigh wound has been rudimentarily bandaged. Miharu is also gnawing away at Trimagesi's flesh with impunity. Seeing Goring awake, she quickly approaches the bed and cuts off a fresh piece of meat. Handing it to him, Goring cautiously takes it and brings it to his mouth, but the pungent taste was too much to swallow. Miharu brings him some water. The smell washes out quite a bit this time. Then, Miharu chews up another piece of raw meat and offers it to Goring, perhaps because it has been filtered by Miharu's saliva. The taste of blood is less overpowering, allowing Goring to reluctantly swallow it. Before Goring can express his gratitude, Miharu follows the platform down to the next level in search of her child. After enduring for several days, Goring ultimately cannot escape the judgment of human nature, which extends its grasp to the decaying corpse of Trimagesi. Despite his unwillingness, this is the fate of those in the lower levels of the prison to either become hunters or prey. The physical weakness combined with mental torment soon causes Goring to experience hallucinations, but he is quickly awakened by a dog licking his face. It turns out to be his new cellmate arranged by the prison. Goring immediately looks towards the wall. The number 33 floors gave him a secret sigh of relief. Only then does he focus his attention on the new cellmate. To his surprise, it is Imagiri, the inspector who initially evaluated and approved his eligibility for imprisonment. She had sent numerous convicts into the prison and, tired of the orderliness of being a manager, wanted to experience the life of those being managed. Just then, the food platform descends to their floor, and luckily, the leftovers discarded by those above still provide a relatively ample meal. Weak and famished, Goring immediately devours the food. In contrast, Imagiri prepares 2 empty plates and portion out the same amount of food, intending to distribute it to the prisoners on the lower levels. By doing so, she hopes that even the lower classes will have access to the most basic of food. However, her ideals were futile in the face of the cruel prisoners, and no one would consider the lives of the lower prison population as she did. But Imagiri doesn't give up. Every day, she continues to allocate equal portions of food and urges the prisoners on the lower levels to pass on the hope to others. Goring couldn't stand it any longer and shouted at the people on the lower levels. If they didn't follow Imagiri's instructions, he threatened to defecate on the food platform. Surprisingly, this tactic proved effective in making the lower-level prisoners comply reluctantly, but it was only limited to their floor, because Goring can only shit downwards. On this day, Miharu descended with the food platform to their level once again, but this time she was severely injured. They quickly lifted her onto the bed and took care of her attentively. However, that night, Goring was awakened by shouts and discovered the 2 women engaged in a violent fight. It turned out that Miharu, driven to extreme hunger, had eaten Imagiri's beloved dog. To prevent any further escalation, Goring sent Miharu away the next day, but without her dog, Imagiri lost all interest in life. She confessed to Goring that she had sent Miharu to prison and that she was not looking for her child, but a complete lunatic. Imagiri then removed her shirt, revealing a prominent scar on her chest. It turned out she had a terminal illness and didn't want to spend her final years in pain. That's why she had come to the prison with her dog, hoping to spend the remaining time together. However, upon arriving here, she realized that as a manager, her knowledge of the prison was only the tip of the iceberg. Nevertheless, her method of rationing food proved effective. Soon, it was time for the floor rotation again. When Goring woke up, the first thing that caught his eye was Imagiri's feet, followed by the conspicuous label 202. Looking down, all he saw was an endless abyss, indicating that the prison had far more than 200 levels. The floors were filled with prisoners teetering on the brink of collapse. Goring carefully placed Imagiri's body on the ground and collapsed on top of her. On the verge of collapse, for several days, the platform arrived empty, without any food. In his weakened state, Goring picked up a shard and marked the dates on the wall. However, the days of hunger were torturous. On the verge of a breakdown, Goring could only tear out pages from his favorite book to satisfy his hunger. After enduring for several days, Goring's rationality ultimately triumphed over his humanity. He grabbed a samurai sword and slowly approached Imagiri's lifeless body. This Bahara wanted to escape from the prison. He desperately climbed upward, clutching a thick rope with his arms. His relentless efforts were aimed at breaking free from this cannibalistic prison. Bahara extended his big hand, hoping that someone above would pull him up. If his cellmate hadn't given him a hand, he would have fallen to pieces by now. Bahara let out a roar as he turned on the faucet to wash away the filth on his body. Losing the rope shattered his hopes of escape. Finally arriving at the 6th level of the prison, he realized that there was no place closer to the exit. It turns out there are hundreds of floors in this prison. The prisoner's floors rotate randomly once each time. However, all the food in the prison was distributed starting from the top floor and gradually descending to the lower levels. The upper-level people could enjoy luxurious meals that the lower-level people could only dream of, while the lower-level people could only eat the leftovers and even their saliva. Of course, the limited food would only reach the 100th level before it was completely depleted. Those at the bottom either starved to death or became a living hell to stay alive. Although they were lucky to reach the 6th level this time, after witnessing the gruesome deaths of several cellmates, Goring had lost faith in everything. However, influenced by Imagiri, he decided to challenge the prison's food distribution mechanism. After careful calculations, he discovered that by implementing a fixed food ration for the prisoners, everyone could have enough to eat and avoid starvation. He persuaded the devotee Bahara to join him, and together they overturned the beds and dismantled the steel pipes. The next day, they followed the food platform as it descended to the lower levels. With Bahara, a towering and imposing figure, no one dared approach their platform. They did not allocate food to the prisoners on the first 50 levels, because these people can fast for a day without being starved to death. It was only from the 51st level onwards that they started the ration food distribution. Upon the advice of a wise person, they decided to reserve a portion of food intact and return it to the hands of the administrators. This was intended to convey the message of breaking the rules. Subsequently, the two of them exerted their strength on the food platform. They dealt with those who refused to listen directly with their sticks. Yet soon after they still saw the killings. Goring believes that this is the floor where Miharu woke up. And to their surprise, they discovered that when there were no living individuals on a level, the food platform wouldn't stop. The next level, they witnessed Miharu being pinned down by a man and brutally stabbed multiple times. Goring quickly jumped down and engaged in a struggle with the man, while Bahara fought with another person wielding a long knife. But in their first encounter, Bahara was injured and slashed across his waist. At the same time, Goring was overpowered and pinned down by a strong man, who mercilessly choked him. Just as he was about to suffocate, a severed head rolled to the side, and blood splattered on Goring's face. Enduring the intense pain, Goring crawled to the bedside, but the woman had already ceased to breathe. Bahara, using his last ounce of strength, pulled Goring onto the descending platform and continued distributing food floor by floor. However, the platform continued descending until it reached the 250th level without stopping, which greatly exceeded their expectations. During this time they have seen what it means to be a true purgatory on Earth. Here are prisoners crushed in two by the platform, others who have been burnt to ashes for hiding food. There were also those who clung to piles of tickets, dreaming their dreams. They had no more food to distribute, except for custard as a message. Of course, there were no living beings left in need of food either. Just as they were on the verge of collapsing, the platform finally came to a halt. It seemed that they had reached the bottommost level of the prison. The number 333 was carved on the wall. This figure is really low. At that moment, Goring noticed a child crouching under the bed, staring at them with wide eyes. Despite the pain, Goring and Bahara climbed down from the platform to observe the situation. However, in the next instant, the platform did not pause and plunged into the endless abyss. By this time the child had also crawled out from under the bed and was staring straight at the custard in Bahara's hand. Bahara, murmuring prayers, slowly pointed his knife at the child. But the next moment the child ate the custard with gusto. Although the plan had failed, both of them felt a sense of contentment. At least this time, the food distribution had been executed perfectly, and their kindness had not been extinguished by the prison. When Goring woke up again, he found Bahara lying lifeless in a pool of blood. It was an outcome he had not anticipated. However, even though Goring was alone, he had no intention of giving up. Although the custard is gone, but the girl at that moment was the one with the most important message. As the platform descended to the bottom level once more, Goring took her hand and walked onto the platform, continuing their journey deeper into the abyss.